This is Money Talk.
Our money is your money. We print it for you to use.
America's most trusted advisor on money matters for 25 years. Now, Bob Brinker.
Tom Vacar sitting in for Bob Brinker, who is taking a day off, and glad to be here. I'm a news reporter, generally speaking, but with a legal background and done it for many, many years in a lot of consumer, economic, legal kinds of reporting. And happy to be here. And joining me in this hour is somebody I'm really glad to have here. His name is Roger Gershman. He is the head of a company called WealthGuard, and we'll talk about that in just a second. He's the author of a book called Confessions of a Financial Advisor. He writes for Forbes and twice a month, Motley Fool also, and speaks at conferences as to what to watch out for when you're trying to find a financial advisor or you have one that's not doing the job that you want. And so Roger is here. Roger, let me ask you, first of all, you really are not a financial advisor in that same classic sense. What did you do before you did WealthGuard?
Tom, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I did a lot, 25 years as a financial advisor at big banks and brokerage firms. I started my career as a second-generation financial advisor. My dad was an advisor for Merrill Lynch for 25 years. And I followed in his footsteps and wanted to take that experience and apply it to being a financial advisor myself. So I started at Hambrecht & Quist back in 1986. And then I went to UBS and Credit Suisse and lots of different firms. So.
Now let me ask you this. Financial advisors, financial planners, et cetera, et cetera. How many of them are there here in the United States? Because it's an astonishing number.
It is. There's 750,000 financial advisors in the country. Financial planners, brokers, financial advisors, insurance agents who sell financial products and the like.
So if you are, out of any group of that large, there's going to be some folks that are real stars, and there are going to be some folks that are very, very good at what they do, and there are going to be some folks that aren't quite so good. Why did you found WealthGuard? And tell us what WealthGuard is and why you founded it.
So after 25 years as a financial advisor, working as an employee of these banks and brokerage firms, I hit a crossroad in my life where post the credit crisis of 2008, I looked myself in the mirror and felt that I was only representing the true interest of the bank rather than necessarily the interest of the private client. I felt myself defending the interests of the bank. And, of course, banks were going through some very significant turmoil at that time. And I thought of a service called WealthGuard, which would watch the people who watch your investments. So what I wanted to do was not sell any stocks, bonds, mutual funds, or investments, but I wanted to help people, provide them an insider look into the world of investment management at banks and brokerage firms. How can they better themselves with their relationships with banks and brokerage firms? What's the inside of these banks? What's the conflicts of interest? How to find a financial advisor? So rather than represent whatever bank that I was working for, help them identify which bank, broker, money manager, financial advisor they can work with throughout the country.
Now, intuitively, we all know that there are various levels, as I say, star performers down to people. Is it very hard to be able to get a license, or is it very hard to be able to hang a shingle out in front of your office saying, I'm a financial advisor, financial planner, et cetera?
It's very easy. The test is it's a 6-hour test, but it's not that difficult to take. So with 750,000 financial advisors and tens of thousands of advisors entering the market practically every day, it's very, very easy.
All right, so how do you discern? Let's talk about the high-end client first, because this is really how you kind of make your money. Mm-hmm. For the high-end client, what do you do for the high-end client?
Well, we offer a number of services at WealthGuard. Again, we watch the people that watch your money. And for companies or organizations, set up pre-vetted financial advisors and accredited financial advisors to manage the wealth of the members of those organizations or the employees of the company.
Okay, having said that, now, let's say that I'm not a high-end client. Let's just say I'm a guy that's got a 401k, or I'm a person that maybe inherited, some money, or I'm a person who is a good saver and I've got a lot of money sitting maybe in a not terribly productive bank account and all of that stuff. What is it that you would tell me to look for? What's the first thing I need to look for when I'm looking for somebody to help me make that money grow?
Yes. It's very, very difficult to find a good financial advisor. With that many financial advisors out there, differentiating between one and the next is extremely difficult. They sound and look very, very similar. So there's quite a number of questions that the private investor, whether or not you have $10,000 or you have $1 million or you have $10 million, it doesn't really matter as far as the questions that you ask. It doesn't differentiate relative to the size of assets that you have. The questions are all very, very uniform, but there are a lot. At WealthGuard, we have a 7-point system. So we look at 7 key characteristics, from objectivity and standard of care. Do they work at a big bank or brokerage firm? Do they work in an insurance company? Are they a financial planner? Are they a broker? Are they a financial advisor? The type of organization they work for has lots of pros and cons. Just because they're a fee-based financial advisor doesn't necessarily mean they're a good one. Just because they work at Merrill Lynch or a big bank, a lot of people have had bad experiences at these banks. A lot of them have good experiences. Doesn't mean that necessarily it's a good advisor. But you really need to know the positives and negatives of the firm that they are representing. 2, professional reputation. The reputation from what licenses they hold, how long they've been in business, the type of clientele that they work with, personal character, really important. Liens, bankruptcy, criminal, customer complaints or arbitrations, social media, how they position themselves in the public. So many issues relative to personal character. Investment strategy and process. Do they have a defined set philosophy, discipline, and strategy that's uniform? Firm and custodian, and the platform, the custodian that you house your assets at. The cost of the service is widely varying, and we can talk a lot about cost. We can also talk a lot about performance. And what is their track record? Some financial advisors do have a track record. Most actually don't. And how do you discern whether or not they're performing or not? So those are many points. And in Forbes, I write many articles about how to choose a financial advisor and some of these specifics of types of questions you ask when searching for one.
Okay, well, Roger, this is Roger Gershman. Roger is the head of WealthGuard, a firm that he founded after many years of being a financial advisor, financial planner, and says that we need to vet these folks because there are 750,000, and that means that many of them are very good. They do the job well, etc. Nobody's suggesting that's not the case. But this is one of those things where if you pass a test, then it's your skill of marketing, then it's your ability to schmooze, then it's your ability to do other things that may come into play that are more important to that advisor than taking care of your pile of money. And you want that pile of money to grow. You don't want it to shrink, and that's no guarantee that either is going to happen. But the reality is you do need to protect yourself with all of that. So having said that, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with Roger, and we're going to take a couple of questions from some folks that have been waiting for quite some time, but I wanted to wait till Roger got here to talk about this. And this is the Starship Money Talk. Bob Brinker is off today. I'm Tom Vacar. Glad to be here. If you want to call, 800-934-2221. Let's take a break.
This is Money Talk.
Tom Vacar sitting in for Bob Brinker, who's taking a little bit of a break today, and I have in the studio with me Roger Gershman, who is the head of WealthGuard Inc. WealthGuardInc.com is how you can look up on the website, INC, obviously, WealthGuard Inc. And we have a very interesting question from Carl in Chicago, and Carl has a problem, not a problem necessarily, but he gets offended by something. Carl, tell us what your situation is.
Hi. No, I just have a question. For the longest time, I had a CPA that was doing my taxes. Did a good job for a long time. And then he took his courses to become a financial planner. So in addition to being a CPA, he also was a financial planner. And out of the same office with the same company name, let's call it Widget Financial just for conversation's sake. And it just seemed like it was kind of a conflict of interest, because a couple of times after he did my taxes, he would ask me, where am I investing and what am I doing and blah 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 and all that stuff. And I won't say the company, but he specialized in one particular large mutual fund company that was a fee-based company. And when I talked to him about it, this goes back to when the fee-based versus no-load controversy was really high, and this fee-based company was charging 5% up front to invest money in the fund. And
so what you're saying is, if you invested $100,000, the first $5,000 went into the advisor's pocket.
Correct. And I told him, I said, you know what? I said, I really don't. I said, I believe in no-load funds. He goes, they're not as good as managed funds. And I said, well, you know what? 5% sounds a little bit high to me, and I'd rather not do it. And a few times he would, kind of nudge me and saying, you know what? You ought to invest in blah 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 fund, and I never did. But I always thought in the back of my mind that it was kind of a conflict of interest, because he really had you in an interesting situation, because if you were young and making good money after he did your taxes, then he would say, I was just kind of curious, are you investing any of your money? And because we do have financial planning here and blah 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 fund, and you should be investing that money, and we do have Widget, whatever.
What do you say, Raj? What do you say about a guy who's got one job, which is to do your taxes, very important thing, and of course a CPA wants to know if you're taking care of your money, and and there's nothing wrong with being concerned about your client and all that stuff. But when they start pitching, how do you read this?
I read it as legal, but a conflict of interest, and it's as if
it almost seems like a conflict, and it's legal, but it's a conflict of interest. It sounds like you can't have both.
It unfortunately in the industry, it's rampant. Conflicts are everywhere. And what we try to do at WealthGuard is eliminate any conflicts. We don't sell any investments. We don't recommend any mutual funds. We don't recommend any stocks, bonds, even asset allocations in a particular region of the world. What we do is we only watch over the financial advisor, making sure the advisor is doing right by our clients, not buying proprietary funds like your CPA is trying to sell you, and only one fund that has the highest commission to him or her, or they're not taking too much risk for your account, that their performance is independently vetted, that their overall products and services are the best they possibly can be. So it's as if your financial advisor currently that you may trust says to you one day, hey, by the way, I'm setting up a CPA firm, and would you do your taxes with me as well? Well, look, it can be done, but can it be done well? Does it necessarily mean that your CPA, just because they're good with numbers in doing your taxes, has absolutely no relevance to how they can successfully manage money? It is very, very difficult to manage money, and it takes many, many, many years of experience. So this is a conduit in a way your CPA can make more money for him, not necessarily more money for you.
Well, yeah,
okay,
go
ahead.
I have a friend who knows this guy personally, but doesn't invest with him, and he was telling me his fund management side was managing so much money. It was like 17 or maybe at least $25 million at least. And not only did you have to pay that fee to the mutual fund company, but he was getting an annual kickback from the company by hanging on to these people and keeping them in the mutual fund. And he would go to junkets and stuff every year on behest of the mutual fund company, because they'd go send them to cruises and vacations and stuff like that.
Yeah, on your dime.
Yeah.
That's called a 12B1 fee, and your CPA that is performing these functions is not unusual with standard financial advisors throughout this entire union. They sell particular mutual funds in some cases because it pays a very high load to them. They receive an annual kickback, and yes, they get the trips to Hawaii, or they get trips on or dinners, or golf outings. So you need to be very, very cognizant of what the conflicts are. And it's very difficult for a discerning, investor to differentiate between one advisor and the next, and that's why we do what we do.
Carl, thank you for your call. Have a good time there in the Windy City, the second city, a great city, one of the great walking around cities, not this time of year, but one of the great walk around cities. Let me ask you this. A lot of people say, I don't need a financial advisor at all. I just don't need one. I'm smart enough to figure out what my investments are. When do you not need a financial advisor, a financial planner, etc.?
I would say until you have many, many years of experience, do you decide to manage your money on your own. It's a very, very difficult function, and it takes decades of positive and negative experience, and mostly the negative experience allows you to become a better financial manager of your capital.
Hard question, and this is one that a lot of people don't want to answer, but I'm asking you, and that is that if you have a client, what in your company, what amount of money does the client have to have in order for you to properly represent them, and what do you charge them?
I appreciate that. Well, companies or organizations of employees or the members of those organizations can very much value our service, be it's the executive who has a more complex estate and issues with stock options, be it public or private, more sophisticated, larger wealth, to the kid in the company who just came across his first $100,000 and needs to invest. Mm-hmm. Do you want your employees to be distracted by Wall Street, watching their money while they're taking care of the daily functions of the company? And the answer is, of course, no. Financial stress is the number one stress in America, and certainly the degradation of time and energy focused on finances during an employee's day can be very, very burdensome to the company's bottom line. So therefore, we help pre-vet a basket of financial advisors, helping the company identify the best advisors in their region or area to manage the wealth of the organization. If they already have a financial advisor, fine. You don't have to pick these advisors. It's a true HR benefit. And the cost associated with that really depends on the size of the organization, the complexity of the organization, the amount of wealth of the organization. But net, it is a huge, huge cost saver in the end for the company because they're focusing on the bottom line.
Is there a percentage-wise that you can approximate, or?
What we do down to the individual level, we net save people money, mm-hmm. Even after what we charge. So,
is it 2%, 3%?
Oh no, gosh, it's it's an average 1/3 to 30 to 50 basis points. That's 0.3% to 50 basis points.
Well, and again, this is just, the only reason I'm asking is I want people to understand that when somebody's sitting there and they're being charged 5%,
oh my gosh,
and you're looking at 0.3%,
yes,
it's obvious.
Yes.
Here's what we're going to do. We are going to take some more calls, and we got some interesting ones coming up. This is the Starship Money Talk. Bob is on a break, and we are going to come back very shortly, and we are going to do some more calls from Ruth, Nick, and Christine, and we will be doing that right after this break.
Money Talk. This is Money Talk.
This is Tom Vacar here for Bob Brinker on the Starship Money Talk. I'm here with Roger Gershman, who is the founder and the real force behind WealthGuard, a company that vets financial advisors, financial planners. And let's go to Ruth in San Francisco. She has a very interesting situation. Ruth, what's the situation?
Hi. I'm 67 years old, and at the end of last year, I became a widow.
Sorry to hear that.
And I transferred my IRA to this new advisor. And it was just a month and a half after my husband died, and I was somewhat distraught. Anyway, I never got any walk me through, no explanation, no information, no disclosures when I signed over my IRA to him. So is this standard practice, or I'm confused?
Roger?
What firm was it?
I'm sorry?
What firm did you transfer your assets to?
Oh, it's one of these independent financial advisors. I don't know if I can say the name or not.
Well, it's not so much the name of the person, but the point of it being that you're not getting information, correct? You're not feeling like your money is talking back to you.
No, I got no information other than here's the form to sign the transfer papers.
Okay. Yeah, that is odd. It is not unusual to widows who go through this episode change their advisor on average within 2 years because they're just not comfortable, and divorcees actually change their advisor historically within 1 year. In your case of not receiving any disclosure information, this sounds odd, and therefore I would call your financial advisor and ask them specifically for the details behind the custodian of the account, where it's held, and all the disclosure documentation surrounding where the assets are held and the risk associated with it.
And if Ruth then is not satisfied with what she's hearing, what's her recourse here?
I would be alarmed if they don't provide you any detail to disclosures surrounding where your account is held, and there should be layers of documentation more than you would even want to even see in it or read.
Who does she complain to?
First, ask your financial advisor, and if they work at one of the independents, that sounds like a large firm, so ask to speak to the compliance department of that organization. If people are even further alarmed or worried, they can call FINRA, F-I-R-N-A, FINRA, R-A, and or the SEC.
Okay, let's now go to Tom in Carson City, because Tom has a similar issue. Go ahead, Tom.
Good afternoon. Great show, great fill-in. First time I've heard you on air filling for Bob, and you're super.
Thank you very much. You don't know how much that relieves me. Thank you.
No, you are. I've listened to the other films, so you're right on top. Question regarding, I have money or my retirement plan with a large discount broker. And I've not been dissatisfied, so to speak, but I always kind of wonder when I get a call and say, well, we have your money with this particular, like, for instance, I'm going to give a name. Let's call it Joe Smith Partners. And I think that we need to put you into something else, but because I've got a fair amount of, I'm a private client, which probably tells you who I'm with. I'm supposed to not be charged fees. I don't believe I'm getting charged those fees, but you kind of wonder, because Bob always say is got to be careful what you don't see regarding fee costs versus what you do. Are there any concerns you should have as a investor in this type of relationship about what they recommend and what they don't?
It's a great question, and it is. It's amazing to me, as a former financial advisor at banks and brokerage firms, as an employee there, the power that individuals have that they don't know that they actually have. Financial advisors are really, really desperate, actually, to manage your money. They want your account. They want you continuously paying the fees. They want you to hold those assets so they can enjoy their livelihood. And if you're asked questions or threat to potentially leave that relationship, alarm bells go off. So the power that individuals have is very, very significant. And what we try to do at WealthGuard is empower people to ask the questions, and so allowing financial advisors to deliver the answers. Regarding this fee question, it's a question that you should be asking your financial advisor, because they are being paid to manage your money. And if it's at a discount brokerage firm and it's a private client group, they're getting paid. Now, they could be a salaried employee as well, but they're definitely incentivized, or most are, should I say, at discount brokerage firms, to either sell proprietary funds within that firm, or they're paid on assets underneath management. So they're definitely given, or often given, an incentive on top of their salary. And if they're not paid any commission or anything of that nature, and they're purely salaried, you should know that. Well, if they're salaried, they're very, very, of course there will be fees within the mutual funds that are likely to be buying for you. And what those fees are, 12B1 fees, annual fees, custody fees, you should be asking those questions.
Even if they're no-load funds, there are fees involved there in those cases?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. You're both terrific. Have a great weekend.
Tom from Carson City. You don't have to gamble with your money if you just check it out. We really appreciate this, Roger, for coming in. Again, it's WealthGuardInc.com. Generally speaking, high-end people, but at least they can go to your website and learn some things about all of these things. And what's your parting thought?
My parting thought is, people, this is a service that nobody really knows about, and they need to, because it really doesn't exist in the country. Everybody is being sold financial advisors products and services, and they have a very difficult time differentiating between one and the next. There's 3 types of financial advisors out there. There's the really, really talented, very, very good ones. 2, there's the average. And 3, the dangerous. And unfortunately, the dangerous are the mass of financial advisors out there, taking too much risk, charging too many fees, inadequate advice, or, in its worst case, fraudulent. So empower yourself by asking questions, and deep ones, to vet and find the right financial advisor.
I really appreciate that, Roger. Thank you so much for being here. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to talk to a gal you've probably seen on CNN from time to time. Used to work there for a long, long time. Her name is Valerie Coleman Morris. She wrote a book called It's Your Money, so take it seriously and take it personally. And we will be talking to her very, very shortly. It's Tom Vacar sitting for Bob on Money Talk.